Part of Rhode Island cultural history that has been mostly forgotten is the old Crescent amusement park in Riverside, East Providence. What was once a huge attraction that brought in visitors from around the state is now only a fraction of what it used to be. Only a solitary carousel standing as a monument to what used to be a hotspot for people around the region. Riverside was a small fishing village in Providence County, about 10-minute drive from the capital. It remained a relatively small community until a railroad company laid tracks through the town in the 1850s, resulting in a rising number of tourists. Due to an increase in popularity and with plenty of space to use, George Boyden began working on constructing an amusement park, leasing land from a nearby hotel, which he later bought after amassing funds from the attendees. Crescent Park opened in 1886, named for the crescent-shaped beach that surrounded the peninsula. It soon had a couple of attractions, including 2 carousels, a roller coaster called the Toboggan Racer, a scenic railway that circled the park, and more. The Loft Carousel, built by Charles Loft, still stands to this day, featuring over 60 hand-carved horses, intricate German organ, and was a huge draw to the park. Numerous hotels and campsites were made around the park for those who wished to spend their weekends there. Steamboats traveling up the Providence River stopped here, offloading passengers onto the dock that was built on the shoreline, while trains continued to drop off visitors in town, only a short walk and a trolley ride from the park. As the 19th century made way for the 20th, Boyden sold the park to Hope Land Company, who built more structures in the park, including a large dining hall and ballroom. Loft continued to build carousels for amusement parks around New England and built another ride for the park, a river ride called Rivers of Venice. He later took ownership of the park and made his son, Charles Loft Jr., the manager. Jr. would pass away in 1925, and the park would get bought by another company, Beacon Manufacturing Company. Following a hurricane in 1938, the park was severely damaged and subsequently repaired. Numerous rides were constructed during the next 30 years, involving the park swapping ownership once again. In 1969, the ballroom caught fire and consequently burned down. Only 6 years later, following a steady decline in attendance and inability to recover funds for upkeep, the current owners of the park, Crescent Park Recreation Corporation, filed for bankruptcy. The community around the park feared that the park would soon be closed and dismantled, so the Save Our Carousel Committee was formed. They eventually accomplished that, but couldn't save the rest of the park as it got put up for auction and sold to other parks in 1979, 2 years after the park had permanently closed. Less than a year after the park attractions were auctioned off, the dock caught fire, partially burning down, making the now-defunct theme park inaccessible to ferries. A group of real estate developers bought the land and began to build real estate on it, keeping some land in reserve for the carousel and some surrounding land near the beach. The dining hall eventually burned down as well, the last link to the once bustling, lively amusement park. With the train tracks that ran through town torn up and replaced with a bike path, Riverside eventually became as quiet as it was before. Much work has been done to preserve the Loft Carousel. Having received $150,000 in grant money for its upkeep, the National Park Service designated the structure as a historical landmark. The foundation and much of the rigging in the carousel have been refurbished, and it still operates for most of the summer season. Where there used to be roller coasters and dining halls, now is a wide open space for people to stroll around and enjoy the breeze and view of the Providence River. Due to climate change and weather erosion, the waterfront wall overlooking the river has recently undergone and completed renovations. Strolling outside the waterfront, the remnants of the dock that once stretched into the waterway are still visible, remnants of an older time. There are regular craft and music festivals throughout the summer, where people from all over eastern Rhode Island gather for the festivities. A marina is set up in the cove of the inlet of the peninsula, where a fleet of privately owned boats reside. Inside the Carousel House, there is a small museum dedicated to the old park, numerous old photographs and memorabilia from the old attractions and stands on display for all to see. The land that used to be a campground down the hill from the park is now a neighborhood. Having actually grown up and lived here for most of my life, the old amusement park is something I always knew about but never really explored in depth until now. Uncovering the hidden history of this once packed tourist spot was extremely intriguing, and it was quite fun to research this place which I've lived in for the past 23 years. With so few monuments left to this old yet cherished place, the generation which got to experience the park is nearly gone. I hope by doing my due diligence into researching this forgotten place, I may be able to preserve its memory in some form. I grew up going on rides at the carousel when I was a kid, so it has a special place in my childhood. I hope it will continue to live on to bless future generations to come.